Welcome, everyone, to Click Moments and Passionate Pursuits The Unfolding, where intuitively guided conversations are followed with feral faith, enthusiasm, and joy, bringing new insights, inspiration, and perspectives along the way. And we're your hosts, Beth
and Bridget Corns.
And today we're going to be talking about how do we integrate new information that we're learning into our life to make it specifically something that makes a difference to our experience. And so we thought that instead of just talking about this topic today, we're actually going to talk about it through something that we've recently been doing this exercise through.
Great. So we have been paying more attention to a specific, what would you say it is? Channeled teaching that had been brought to our attention. I know Esther Hicks, we're going to say channel, but she doesn't use the word channel to define what she does. But for the purpose of simplicity, I think the way that I would put it is Esther and Jerry Hicks were married. Jerry's passed. Esther began speaking for this group. And channeling is the best way to describe it, like a spiritual entity. And I guess to simplify what channeling is, it's really like if you imagine that there's like all these broadcasts constantly floating through the air, like television broadcasts. I can pick them up. I have a little antenna that I hang up, and all of a sudden I've got all these channels on my TV. So they're present in the air constantly. We can't see them. We can't sense them without the correct equipment. And there are some people who are like tuned to receive these broadcasts, although all of us can be tuned to do this. So it's not like some exceptional ability. So Esther is tuned to this channel of Abraham Hicks, this group that calls themselves Abraham. And so we have been really honestly geeking out over the information, the videos that they put out. And so we're currently integrating information from this one specific video, and it's called Message You Were Meant to Hear Today. It was published on January 4th, 2024 on their YouTube channel, AH Universe. And yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about?
I highly recommend that if you haven't checked it out, that you do. I subscribe to it within one or two, I think maybe not even one or two videos. I subscribe to it within like 20 seconds. I'm just like, this is so cool because it's animation, and I love animation. And so it takes animation, and it's under 15-minute videos that takes particular concepts specific to the law of attraction. And so if you're familiar with the law of attraction, sometimes what happens is we take this information, but we don't necessarily know how to integrate it into our life. Like we have a basic understanding of it. And what I love about these are, because they're digestible, they're these 15-minute clips or under, you can just in your day take this little piece of information and utilize it. And so for me in particular, one of the things that I love about it is, as I'm continuing to try to have the different concepts with the law of attraction sink into my cellular body, I want to embody this information. And when I have a basic understanding of it, it's better than nothing. But we know, and we've talked about this before in our podcast, we've talked about how it takes 400 repetitions of hearing a piece of information for it to become embodied, and 20 times of hearing it through play. And so when you think about that, when you're taking in this information, at some point, you're not going to have to think about it. And you're like, what do I do with this? How does this apply? Let me think about different ways that this makes sense to me and make it germane. At some point, you just know it. No different than I know how to tie my shoes. I just do it. Just do it, right? So it's that kind of rote memory that's just us now, which is why we're trying to listen to these things over and over, because we want that repetition, because we know that every time we listen to it, it means something different to us, right?
Yeah, and can I just jump in and say the reason I really enjoy these videos is that each one of them is Esther channeling Abraham Hicks and an individual asking a question that's like super relatable. Like they're so human, and they're so kind of like, it's just relatable in the things that they're asking. Like this one that we're talking about, the person asking the question is specifically saying, okay, well, I heard you say this about Esther and Jerry were driving from Phoenix to San Diego, and Phoenix is hot and dry and San Diego is cooler and, you know, near the ocean. And it's just, so they're taking this journey and they know that San Diego is their destination and they can't wait to be there. But it's like they get to Yuma and it's the middle of the desert and it's like a ghost town and nobody wants to be there. And they could just as easily get stuck in this place versus going all the way to San Diego, which is their destination. So the person asking the question asks, well, how close am I to my destination? Like, how close am I to the manifestation of the thing that I'm desiring? And it's so relatable in just the way that the channeled response comes in. They're like, oh, oh, you cute human. But you know, I mean, I feel like we've all asked that question and we all constantly ask that question. Like, okay, with this law of attraction stuff and this manifestation stuff, you tell me that it can happen instantaneously. And yet when it doesn't, I want to know, well, how close am I to it happening? And so it's just,
Mhm.
it's a great question because it's something that I think a lot of us have wrestled with.
Right. One thing before I get into what you just said, which I'm excited about, I love that you started there, is if you don't believe in channeling, if you don't think that somebody can actually take information from beyond and bring it here or has those abilities, don't try not to get hung up on that. If you're into the law of attraction or if you are trying to understand those concepts, just keep in mind that what you're going to learn in those types of programs are going to be something that brings you further along with that,
Mm.
right? So the other thing with this, with what you were describing, is what I love about this analogy that she gave, or when she was sharing this particular example or this metaphor. Um, if you think about it, she's saying that sometimes people get to Yuma and they turn around. They're like, I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to get to San Diego. It's just not going to happen. And she describes this as like, so San Diego is the equivalent of your dreams or something that you're wanting to manifest or something that you hope for in your life, a goal. And what you wouldn't do is if you were on your way from Phoenix to San Diego, you wouldn't get to Yuma and be like, why is this not San Diego? Why am I not in San Diego yet? Right? We wouldn't say get hung up on that. We know exactly why we're not in San Diego, because it's not time to be in San Diego yet. We haven't gotten even remotely near San Diego. So
Right.
we wouldn't ask that question, but that is a physical external reality. So it's so much easier in our reality. And one of the things it talks about in this episode is reality is so believable. So
Mm.
because we can see that out here, we understand that Yuma isn't San Diego. And if we want to get to San Diego, we have to keep going. But when we look at our dreams or we look at something that we're trying to manifest, what happens is, because it's in the invisible realm, because it's hovering around us, because it's still in motion, and it means that even though it's in motion and we're in that car going already, we can't see the movement. We can't see the subtle shifts that we're closer. We can't see that we've already taken one step and two steps. We've already driven 3 miles and 10 miles and 200 miles, and we just need to go 300 more. We can't see how far we are. So instead, we get hung up on the fact that we're not there. And by getting hung up on the fact that we're not there, we're not going to get there because we're in the frequency of not being there. And it gets us frustrated, which actually brings us further away from what it is that we're trying to manifest, instead of aligning us with being closer to that thing.
Okay. Oh my God. So, okay, two things. One, I'm going to try to keep these both in my head so I don't lose them. One, that would be like me being on an airplane in the air, headed somewhere. Like, I've already left Rochester in this snowy oasis, and I'm headed to, I don't know, Florida. Yeah. to Tampa. And that would be like me in the air in the airplane going, oh, I'm totally not going to make it there because I'm not there yet. Like that sounds so unreasonable because it is. That's ridiculous to say that. It doesn't make sense. Of course you're going to be there. You're in the air. You're on the way there. You're practically there. What I would say is, oh, I'm going to be in Tampa in 2.5 hours. See you soon. Like we make plans like this all the time. This is how we live our lives because we're stuck in this present moment. We're always plotting things out in the future. Like I know that me and my kids are going to be at Kung Fu on Monday night. Of course we are. Are we there right now? No, but we're going to be there. It's just logical. But for some reason, when it's not in the physical, when it's a manifestation, we treat it differently. We don't treat it logically like that. So the other thing that I was going to say was when they're in that car and they're driving, like imagine we're on our way to this manifestation of this thing and we're driving there. It'd be like one of us is driving and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I don't think we're ever going to make it there. So I take my foot off the gas and my foot's not on the gas anymore. And I'm like, oh, the car stops moving. We're not going to make it. It's like, well, put your foot back on the gas and then you will. But that's what we do to the vibration of like expectancy and the vibration of calling it in. We literally stop ourselves. We take the foot off the gas. We disrupt the vibration. We're not in the flow of source anymore. And it was our choice. We're in control of that. We're the ones driving the car. We're the ones with our foot on or off the gas pedal. But it's harder. It's so much harder to conceptualize when it's manifesting something versus traveling somewhere.
And this gets back to that the physical reality that is right in front of you, right? So the reality is so believable because it's tactile. So we have our 5 senses. And so when it's something that we can understand through our 5 senses, then we believe it. And this is what they said, reality is so believable. I'm just going to keep repeating that because it's an important concept to get. You're 3 times in of hearing it of the 400 to actually get it, right? So because reality is so believable and it's in our 5 tactile senses, then we're much more willing to go with it. We understand it. Oh, of course, I just need to keep my foot on the throttle and that will actually get me there. I understand this. It's actually something that I've had enough imprints on that I know it. I know it, right? Now, here's the thing. The same concept, like macro, micro, the same concept in the physical sense versus the invisible realm, the same concepts are actually still apply, right? And so when those same concepts actually apply in the invisible realm, it's because we don't have enough experience with it yet. We don't believe it because it's in this invisible realm. But the thing is when you start practicing and when you start paying attention to how things from the invisible realm and that you listen to it and it actually comes true, or that you've gotten this intuitive nudge and you followed it and it actually worked out. You don't understand why it did, but it did. When you start paying attention with that kind of detail and giving it credibility and understanding that concept, then practicing those things will make you keep your foot on the metaphorical throttle, right? You're actually going to keep moving forward because you get that it's only through the invisible that something actually comes. Like it's through the invisible, but then physical things start to come in front of you. Most of the space in this universe, like, look, there's nothing here. There's nothing here. This is all invisible. This is space that's not used, right? This is actually physical space. This is like, you can feel it, right? But we've created this into the invisible realm.
Someone manifested that from the vision of it that was invisible to the physical product that was manufactured. Yes. That's the product. Everything, literally everything that we can interact with is the product of manifestation. When people teach manifestation, it sounds so woo and so out there, but everything that exists because it was manifested. It was pulled from a concept or from energy or from a vibration. It was filtered through a vessel that could interact with physical substance, and then it was created.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted the example I wanted to use was you and I both grew up in times before and after major technological breakthroughs and developments. So we have learned, we've integrated some seriously unbelievable things into our lives, what we're doing right now being one of them. This, if I would have seen a vision of this when I was a kid, I would have had zero context for what the heck I was looking at. Like, what is this screen?
Right.
How am I interacting with someone? That is crazy. And I wouldn't have known where to categorize that in my reality because it didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
But we have fully integrated cell phones, internet, computers, all of these things that did not exist in part of our lives and that we operated without. And now they are an integral part of our lives today. So that's what integrating these concepts can look like. All of us have done it because we had to. Yeah, good.
Oh my God. Okay. So this is why this is so important. If you're sitting here going, why is integrating new information so important? In your example, if you have somebody with a cell phone and they have this cell phone, two people can have the same cell phone. And one person can say, I'm going to integrate this new information. I have no idea how to use a cell phone, but what do I do with this? Let me learn this. Now, there are thousands of applications that you can do, how you can utilize this new information, right? And somebody else can actually look at this and say, nah, I don't want to integrate this new information. I don't want to do that. So you have people that have not used cell phones. I know it's hard to believe, but there are people who have not used cell phones and refuse to use them. And they're like obstinate. I am not going to do this. That's okay. You don't have to use a cell phone. But what it does mean is that you don't get the benefit of the cell phone. You don't get to have at your fingertips Google and be able to look up something just on a whim. You don't get the benefit of taking a call anywhere. You don't get the benefit of GPS. You have to use your physical map. You don't get the benefit of being able to, when your card, breaks down, that you actually have a way and you don't have to thumb it like this or wave some stranger down and have the risk of that. You don't get all of the benefits of that. You don't get the boarding pass when you're entering the plane on your phone. There's all these different things that you don't get. So you don't have to integrate the new information. So why this is so important is it gives you new openings when you take in and you integrate new information into your life. And not everything that's out there in this world is for you. Not everything. You have to listen to your intuitive nudges to say, is this for me or is this not? But sometimes there are things that we get told over and over and over that we should integrate. We feel it inside. We believe that we should, and we block it. And so the important thing is there something that keeps coming up in me saying, hey, how many times in my life has a cell phone come up and I just keep blocking it? So it gives you access. New information gives us access to move us forward, because if we want a different life, then we have to break out of the life that we have now, and we have to learn something new to receive something new. That's just how it is. Otherwise, we keep getting the same thing we've always gotten. We're wondering, why can't we progress? Because we're not taking in anything new. You don't know anything new to move you forward.
Yeah, well, and it's not going to be possible to take in new things until we have a system upgrade. Like,
exactly.
First, you've got to look at the system that you're operating on and recognize the fact that if you continue running that system, then it's like, okay, example, my kids had this old iPad, it's like mini iPad. And at some point, the software upgrades that Apple would send out wouldn't load to that iPad anymore because the physical iPad was outdated. Like, it could not run the new system.
Yeah.
So because it couldn't run the new system, they couldn't download the apps that they wanted. It couldn't run the new apps. And now the whole thing is outdated. But the cool thing about Apple is you can take that iPad, back it up to the cloud, get a new one that's updated, and load all the old information onto the new iPad. And then all of a sudden you can upgrade new systems, new apps, all of that. Humanity is going through a period of a massive upgrade right now.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, massive. And there are people all over the spectrum who have either fully subscribed, and they're like, send me the updates, automatic updates. Like, I want those downloads while I'm sleeping. Like, let's go. And there's people who are denying the fact that it even exists. And that's fine. That's fine. But at some point, you're not going to receive the benefits of these upgraded apps and this new software. You're not going to be able to run on that program anymore. What's going to happen is, if you're not running that, then you're going to be disconnected from all of these people who are. You're going to lose the ability to connect and to communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you brought this up, because this is what I saw the other day. I was actually looking at somebody's post on social media, and it's somebody that I actually know. And the post was actually so not my belief system, right? And I was looking at it, and I was like, wow. And I could see the bits of information that this person was behind on that would not allow them, because they did not have because they didn't know this, because they didn't know that. They didn't have experience with this. They didn't have experience with that. Their belief system was so far back here that they were like putting it out there, like sanctimoniously, like trying to put people down. And I was like, oh my gosh. They're literally showing that there's like these 5, 6, 7 pieces of information that they don't have access to. But that's where in our society, and myself included, there are things that I don't have access to, that I don't know, that when somebody else looks at me and they're like, you don't know that? No. Like, I haven't had your set of experiences. I don't know what you know. We all are coming into now, here, to this moment, with the people, the experiences, all of that, right? We all are coming into this, but it's our belief system with our operating system that is telling us and informing us of the truth of the reality in front of us. And if we can keep this receptivity and understanding that, wow, once I update my belief system, which is through new information, when I integrate that new information, suddenly everything that you now believe, it doesn't mean I have to believe it. It means I understand it. You get to choose if you believe something or not, but you can at least understand somebody else's perspective if you take in new information.
Okay. Have you seen the movie The Village, M. Night Shyamalan?
A long time ago.
Okay. Spoilers upcoming. So
okay.
The premise, and it's been a long time since I've seen it, so it's going to be like anyway. The little write-up is, there's an Amish-style community that lives cut off from the outside world by the woods, in which they believe dangerous creatures exist. They have this uneasy truce with the creatures. If they stay out of the woods, they get left alone. So at the end of the movie, we come to realize that this village is actually in present times. And all of these people were living totally cut off by fear from outside society. It's like the visual I got when you were talking about that was this concept. You live in this little old village that you've always lived in your entire life, and it's good and it's comfortable and it's safe, and all the corner stores that you're used to are there, and Bobby still works behind the counter of the post office, and you know everyone, and it's just your little small town, your one stoplight small town. Meanwhile, the rest of the world's been building up superhighways, and there's cities, and there's high rises, and there's all this infrastructure that you couldn't even dream of. But fear keeps you walled off from that. I don't want that. I like this. This is comfortable. I'm used to this. I'm good. I'm safe. It's good enough. That's the concept that I get. Like, it's, and like you said, learning the new information doesn't mean we have to believe and integrate all of it. It doesn't bother me if someone is like, law of attraction, I don't believe in that. What does bother me is when someone says that and they haven't immersed themselves in the opportunity to understand it. If you've gone deep in all these concepts and you're like, these are what resonate. This is the foundation for my belief system. Beautiful. But if you're just saying, well, that's unbelievable. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't even want to understand it. Well, then you're blocking yourself from the opportunity to expand beyond your little village.
Well, and here's the thing about that. So some pieces of new information don't harm you. Like, for example, if I don't learn about a new paint that I can put on my wall, and I don't even have a house, and I don't care about paint, if I don't learn about that new paint, it doesn't have any impact on me whether or not I learn that or not. But here's the thing about the law of attraction. It's a scientific law that is impacting us whether we understand it or not. So it's like saying, it's, you know what it's almost like saying? Maybe, I don't know, you tell me. It feels like it's like not, it feels like not going to college or not getting a certificate. Like, let's say you're at a job and that job says you need this certificate to grow, and you'll get an advancement if you go to this class, and you're like, nope, I'm good. Or you find out that if you go to 2 years of college and you could do this, you'll make 50% more than what you make now. And you're like, nah, I don't want to do that. Okay, you don't have to, but the reality is when you're sitting around asking, why can't I make more money? And you're like, well, you can go to get this certificate, or you can take this 2-year degree, or you can learn, like with the law of attraction, it's actually something that we know is happening, whether or not we understand it or not. So why wouldn't I try to understand something that's definitely impacting me? If I don't like something that continues to happen in my life and I notice that it happens over and over again, the rub is I'm not a victim. I don't understand it. But it's me. I'm actually the one attracting it to me, and I don't even know what thoughts, beliefs, emotions are in my body and my sphere that I'm continuing to attract this to me. But guaranteed, if there's something that's happening in your life right now and you're like, I wish this would stop, the good news is we get to learn how to stop it. Now, it may take me 400 times of learning a piece of information, and I don't know which piece of information it is, but that's where I tune in and I try to understand my intuitive nudges to what information comes up. For me, it's Universe right now, but in a week, it might be something else. But that's my journey. And if somebody else says, oh, I was listening to Brene Brown's Braving the Wilderness, and man, it was amazing to me. Great. The universe is leading you to something that you need right now, but it's the new information for you at this juncture, at this time, given what you have going on, and you can pay attention to it and take advantage of progressing and growing, or we can stay in these old belief systems, continue to get what we have, and then sit around and go, why do I keep getting what I have? Because we're not stretching ourselves. It's part of resilience and that and growth, right? In order to learn new information.
Okay. Oh my gosh, this is so good. I have like 15 different directions I want to go, but I'm going to start with this one because I'm the metaphor queen. So I'm going back to the iPad metaphor. I got this nudge. I was like, there's a lot that I can recall there, because this is my tradition. There's a lot of Bible verses about wisdom and understanding, like a lot of them. I'm just going to read 3. Wisdom is supreme, therefore get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding. The Spirit of the Lord is the Spirit of wisdom and understanding. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding, for the gain from her, I love that because Sophia is wisdom, it's feminine. for the gain from her is better than gain from silver, and her profit better than gold. So if you imagine that prior to and after our existence here in these physical bodies, we are like information stored in the cloud. You are not playing with your squeaky ball right now. We're recording. We're like information stored in the cloud. When we come here into physical bodies, it's like we download all of that cloud information into a physical device. And what else would we come into physical bodies to do other than upgrade? Download some more apps, run new programs. There's no other reason. None of this comes with us back to the cloud. The only part of this experience that comes with us is what we understand and the wisdom that we gain from it. That's all we take with us. The love, the joy, the peace, the vibrations, but not the physical stuff. None of this comes with us. It's our experience of those things. It's the learning and the wisdom and the understanding that we gain from our interaction with those things. And then we go back up into the cloud and take all that information back. And now we expand this bank of information. We're all little bits of source, all little divine bits going down to gain information and to interact in all these different ways so that we can all go back up to the cloud and sync all the data that we've gained back together. That's the point. You're muted.
You're talking about the macro and the micro, and you're talking about this expansion of our individual expansion informs and benefits the collective expansion, right? And here's the thing. It's interesting. I used to get frustrated a lot when I saw that there wasn't like, it's not everybody's journey to expand like in the same way that we do. So sometimes our expansion is when I'm expanding in what would be considered a positive way, it's just positive to us. We're just the ones labeling it positive or not. But when somebody else is expanding in another way, then that also informs us as a collective. And it could be perceived here as negative, right? But it's still informing the whole, right? And so I think about, for me personally, I just know that I'm supposed to expand, period. I know that I'm supposed to expand. That just makes sense to me. Like that I am here to continue to grow. No different than if I were a 6-year-old and I were like, I don't want to be 7. I don't want to be 16. I don't want to be 21. I don't want to be 30. Talk about an exercise in futility. Like the bottom line is that you have to grow. That is the human condition, that we are constantly growing. And sometimes growth means that it's physically, but it's through our experiences. And all that does is it's constantly expanding us. But we have to, in order for us to integrate new information, there has to be this stance of receptivity, right? We have to have this stance. Otherwise, if we're like, I know this, I got to be honest with you. Sometimes when I say I've got this push pull with knowing something, because I feel like to know something allows for me to draw something to me that I'm hoping to receive. But I also know that there's an interesting experience and stance with knowing something, because sometimes when I know something, it stops me from learning something new. So what I think I know may not be entirely true, right? So what I think I know may not be entirely true. So when I say I know something, it stops me from hearing what it is that you say that could expand my collective understanding of this. Like I could say, can you imagine if you were a chef and you say, oh, I don't need to know how you cook. I know how to cook. Oh my gosh. If a chef said, I don't want to learn anything else new and I know how to cook, then you're going to be outdated soon. As a chef, if you say it's good enough, pretty soon nobody's coming to your restaurant because nobody wants to eat the same darn thing over and over and over again. They want to see the most amazing restaurants of our time constantly grow and evolve. They're doing something different.
So here's what happens to those restaurants that stop the growth, that aren't interested in upgrading or integrating new things. They close.
Mm-hmm.
They close. I mean,
Yeah.
at some point they become obsolete.
That's right.
And
That's
and
right.
I'm not being, like, hear me when I say this, I'm not being critical of people who aren't interested in growing in the way that we're growing. Spiritually or intellectually. That's what lights me up. I'm naturally going to grow in that path. It's like trees, like the branches of a tree are going to go in the direction they're going to go in naturally. I might go this way and you might go that way, and that's fine. But as long as there is motion and evolution and expansion in some way, maybe someone's job that they agreed to when they came here was just to have a human experience and interact with people in a certain way, and maybe they're growing, learning a trade, and that's their mode of growth. None of us can judge what someone else's direction or rate of growth is.
Right.
But all we're suggesting is that, like, the quote doesn't work. Do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. It doesn't work if you block knowing better.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
A stagnancy. Here's the thing. Let's put it, if you were to put it in this term, like, I know people who don't necessarily want to grow in some ways, and I'm probably like this in certain ways too, like that I'm pretty happy in certain ways. So I'm not suggesting that we have to grow in every way. I think it can be exhausting to grow in every single avenue, right? But I know people who, they want the latest Mercedes. You don't want the Model T. No, you're not sitting around going, nope, that Model T, I love that Model T. That Model T is amazing. Even people that I know who have like cars that are like muscle cars, they have other cars that they drive in. They only take those out on occasion, right? They're not using the 1967 Mustang every single day. They're keeping that in the garage, and on special occasions, they're going out for a ride. But you wouldn't say, no, 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 no. I want the analog phone. I want the phone that's tied the cord to, I want the cord and I want it attached to the wall. Like, I don't know anybody who's still got that phone. Like, I don't even think it has any value at this point. I bet it exists somewhere, but I think it'd be hard pressed to make a case that that's a better phone. Like that it's okay. Like, it is okay, but you could have so much more.
I'm sorry, I just got this flashback. When I was a kid, the first things I would do every time I went to my grandma's house. This is fantastic because it's a perfect illustration. I would boot up the old Atari system and play some Frogger because that was my favorite game. And I would call my cousin on her old rotary phone. You know, the one it takes like 5 years to get back to the number, and then you can dial the next one and then go all the way back.
And God forbid if you mess it up.
Oh my gosh, you hang up and do it all over again.
Then you got to hang it up and do it all over again.
Yep. Oh my God. I would my brain, I'm so squirrely. The fourth number in, I'd forget what number I was on.
You'd be like,
it takes so long. But this is a great example because it wasn't that she didn't have upgraded versions of those things, but it was like, there's something about studying the growth patterns of things that's fascinating. So like keeping those old things around to remind you of like where you came from and how far you've come. It's there's something valuable in that. And even if we're talking metaphysically, like I think back often to the faith that I was born into and the growth that occurred from where I started to where I am now, because I can project that out and go, oh, I'm so excited about where I'm headed. Look at how far I've come. Look at how much I've grown. where am I headed
Mhm.
next? Because I'm
Yeah.
not stagnant. I'm sure evolving. I'm moving. Like I'm in the
Yeah.
flow of wherever spirit's taking me. And that's really exciting.
So just in the last few minutes that we have as we're taking a look at this, I think it's really a helpful exercise to show what integrating new information can look like. And for me, I love doing it myself. Like I love just taking in new information, but I love even more having a conversation with like you or a friend who has a different perspective or point of view, because you stretch me, right? Like people that we know that have a difference of opinion help us wrestle with these different
Mhm.
concepts and have a different perspective. It's like we were talking about earlier, like if you have a pear sitting here and on this side it's, bruised and on this side it's gorgeous, then you might be looking at it from one way and being like, "Oh my god, we've got to cut into this. This looks amazing." And I might be going, "This is rotten." But we have a different perspective about the same thing. And if I were to turn it around, we'd be like, "Oh, that's a totally different perspective. I didn't even see that. Wow, that's great."
Mhm.
Right. But
Mhm.
we wouldn't want to stick to, "Oh, there's only one way to see this pair." Right. And so I think that there's a benefit to just maybe taking a couple of concepts that stood out from this the one that you referenced earlier, that Abraham Hicks, to show like that kind of banter that's
Mhm.
really fun to take a concept forward. Right.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you have something. I've got a couple of things kind of marked down that I don't mind sharing, but I'd love to hear what you have, just kind of get us started.
Oh man. So
You had that "until it doesn't matter" that really stuck with me.
yeah, that was one of the first things that stood out to me. And I actually think I wrote it somewhere else, but
I've got it
um
if you don't.
oh yeah, go for it. Read it.
Okay,
Thanks for
so
giving
it's
the
in
notes.
talking about manifestation, right? So as we're talking about manifestation and we're taking a look at things that we're hoping for to occur in our lives, one of the things that they mentioned, and you quoted it and I wrote it down too, and it says, when you're looking at something that's going to be happening, you have to, when you're thinking about it, it says, until it doesn't matter if it is or not, it can't be.
Yeah, I just found it. Yep. Until it doesn't matter
Until,
whether it is or not, it can't be.
like, so think about this when we're thinking about this, what this means. Um, well, let me use it with what came up this morning. Let me
Okay.
use it with what came up
Question.
just a little while ago. So after my grandmother passed away, I noticed that in the shower, which is a shower that she used and I used in the guest bathroom, um, there was a symbol, and it looked to me like a Chinese symbol. And it was weird when it would get steam on the door. There was this random markings, and they're very particular. And I've seen Chinese symbols. I certainly don't know what they are, but I've seen them and they've been important at different times in my life. And all of a sudden, I see this symbol that looks like a Chinese symbol, and it's this big, and it's got these different markings. And I see it, and I'm like, interesting. I don't think much about it. And then a couple of days later, I notice it again, and I start to notice that it's catching my attention, which is an intuitive nudge. And every single time, like in the last year, every single time I get out of the shower or I'm in the shower, I have noticed it, and I'm like, I'm going to take a picture of that and see if it matches an image. And every single time, it's like amnesia. I get out of the shower, I start to dry off, and I forget about it. And I haven't taken a picture of it. Today, I I noticed that the woman who helps my mom with the house cleaning had come in, and she had just been here, and I wondered if it was still there or not, if she had managed to get it off. And I thought it strange that it was still there after she's here every 2 weeks. Well, I go look today and I noticed that it's not there. And I was like, "Oh, just yesterday I said, I'm going to take a picture of it." And I didn't. And I was like, "Oh, well, it's okay." And I literally just released it. And I was like, "It doesn't matter." I guess it wasn't meant to be. And I just literally released it without any frustration. Then I realized that my towel was over here instead of over here. And I had to switch the doors. So while I was in the shower, I switched the doors. And when I switched the doors, it was there. And now, because it was there, I was like, "Oh, this is a gift. You didn't care about it. It didn't matter. And because it didn't matter, now you're like, oh, I do want that." So as soon as I got out of the shower, I grabbed my phone, I took a picture from the inside, I took a picture from the outside, and I was like, I'm going to try to match this image and see what it is and just see if there's anything to it. Send it to you, and immediately you were like, yeah, it's a Chinese symbol. Now we don't know what it is yet, but the first thing that came up on the image was a Chinese symbol. So this is like the universe giving me an illustration of this concept in practice. Like a whole year's gone by. And now at this day, on the cusp of this new information that I've only known for 48 hours, it gave me an illustration of it didn't matter anymore. And when it didn't matter anymore, then I was like, oh, this is a gift. I'm going to go ahead. It seems important right now. I'm going to do this. Take this picture. Figure this out. And now I don't know yet, but it doesn't matter. I trust that when I'm supposed to figure it out, I'll probably be walking through a home store, see some sort of something hanging there. It'll be a wind chime. It'll be the darn symbol. You know, I'm not worried about it. I'm not freaking out. I've got no attachment to it. When I'm supposed to know, I'll know.
Attachment, I think that's key. And I want to put a pin in that and come back, maybe in a different discussion at this point.
Yeah.
Attachment. But so I took that quote in a totally different direction.
Okay.
So when I heard, until it doesn't matter whether it is or not, it can't be, I didn't take it necessarily in terms of like manifesting a physical thing. I think I took it in terms of holding what I understand and know about reality really loosely.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like at this point, almost everything I see and almost every new piece of information I take in is a shade of gray. Like the universe is always balanced. So it has to be a both and scenario. And so like looking at that pair, it was rotten and it was right. It was both.
Yes.
It's
yes.
both.
Beautiful.
And it doesn't matter. I have to release my attachment to being correct to see the whole truth. That's what this means to me. I have to release my attachment and say, this is what I believe. This is what I know to be true. But I'm not ever going to hold that as cemented truth. Like I don't have to. I love to discuss concepts, but I don't argue. Yeah. Because I don't see the value in it in an argument. Like go ahead.
But here's the thing. It's like it means different things to different people. And that's just the truth. Or it's the reality that when you look at something, given the avatar that you are and what your experiences are and your beliefs and your thoughts and your emotions, when you hear a concept like this, it had a meaning to you that was uniquely for you and through you. And for me, it meant something different for me for a reason. And it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. You're not right or wrong. It's almost like a synonym or a word that has multiple meanings. We've talked about this before, how the same word has multiple meanings, and especially in different languages. Like, you've talked before, like in French, it'll be one word that has like 10 different, or one concept that has 10
like
different,
to know. We've talked about the word to know. In English, we have I know. Well, what kind of know are we talking about? In French, there's different terms for I know. I know personally, I know factually. Yeah.
Right. And so when you think about that, then there's always your vantage point or your perspective, but there's also always your expansion. And the universe is always responding to, we can hear the same piece of information and we're all being asked to expand in our own unique way. So when you tell me how you're expanding with this piece of information, I'm like, ooh, interesting. But my piece of information with what it meant to me might be slightly different because I need that to move me forward. Mm-hmm. But there's times that I can see, and I'm not mad about it. There's times that I can see that somebody that I know who isn't into expanding if I share a thought with them, they couldn't possibly understand my vantage point because there's so many things that they need to know to understand my vantage point. And the same thing for me. If I were to talk to a physician, when I go to the doctor, I ask that person to tell me in lay terms what they're understanding. But if they were to try to explain it to me in as if they're talking to another doctor, how could I possibly understand that? It doesn't mean that I'm dumb or I'm incapable. What it means is I don't have the information. I haven't chosen the same thing. I have a different path. That's all it means. That's all it means.
Okay, you ready? So this is like the last thing I have to say on this, but I'm really excited
Yeah.
about this. So we say a lot, the universe is constantly conspiring in your favor. The universe is constantly responding to you and to your desires and to what you want to see and to the vibration that you're putting out. It can't help but respond to you because you are a spark of the divine that caused the creation of this reality. So therefore,
yes.
the vibration and the thoughts that you are broadcasting have to create. They can't not. They have to create.
Right. Yeah.
So therefore, whether you are consciously in control of them or not, they're going to be creating something. They're going to be birthing things into reality.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of what we're talking about here, whatever it is that I am broadcasting, I'm broadcasting and I'm receiving. And so
Yes.
if I'm on channel 3, which is PBS here, and I'm watching PBS, and you're on channel 27 and you're watching ESPN or whatever, it doesn't mean that both of those aren't reality. It just means that I'm not tuned to receive that broadcast. But at any moment, I can change my tuning and begin to see and receive that broadcast.
But you can't if you don't believe channel 3 exists.
Right.
If you're on channel 27 and you're like, channel 3 doesn't exist.
Well, or
you
if
can't
I don't
turn
even
it to
know,
channel 3.
or if I don't even know it's possible to receive a different broadcast.
You're like, I've only watched channel 27.
Right. So many people are like, I get this, like there was this person who I knew when I was younger, who I am telling you, everything that could go wrong and that was negative always happened to them. Always. And they would say and reinforce all the bad things always happen to me. Why do I always have all the bad things happen to me? Everything that can go wrong goes wrong.
I'm scared that you're talking about it.
But no, but here's the difference.
About
here's the difference. I'm saying those things, but vibrationally, I don't align with them.
Right. Yeah.
And I can lie to myself, but I can't lie to the universe.
Correct.
So if vibrationally I believe that, now we have a problem.
Right.
But vibrationally, I believe that I live in an atmosphere of joy and blessings that are abundant constantly. And that's what I experience because that's the broadcast I'm tuned into. Yeah. And there are some times where I slip or someone steps on the remote and I'm like, oh crap, I'm on channel 4. Yeah. Whoa. And then I switch the channel back up. It happens. And that's why in this video that we were watching, she says, it either is or it isn't in the moment. It's not a destination. None of us are permanently upgraded. Mm-hmm. We just know that we can change the channel. Okay, that's it. That's all I got.
Okay, I feel like we could talk about this for days.
We could.
So, I love this. Thank you for talking about this because I do think that this is like a really important topic when it comes to how do we integrate new information? Who do we talk to these things about? What does this look like? What do we take in? It's not about, like, I would really encourage people not to take in what you're supposed to take in, not to look what other people are taking in, to really tune into the universe. When you ask, what do I need to know given my goals right now? What do I need to know that I don't know? And something pops up. If Matthew McConaughey Green Lights comes up, read it, listen to it. If you got audiobooks, download it. Whatever it is that comes up for you, trust that it could be one thing or the whole thing. But listen to that thing, because the universe is always telling us something and we don't have to make sense of it. We just have to be in a space of receptivity to be able to receive what the universe is trying to share with us. I love it. And then lastly, this is just the last thing. Life is different. You have a new experience. That's why we're doing this. Is that it's this upgraded version. It's something that you didn't know that you needed to know. It's the click moment. It's the, this new piece of information is a portal to someplace else. It's taking me someplace else. And it's through new information that I actually get there.
Oh man, thanks for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
And a special thanks to Asheville artist Melissa Moss for our cover art. You can learn more about Melissa at melissamossart.com. Deep gratitude to Cloud Cult for allowing us to use some music from their song, There's So Much Energy in Us. Find out more about them at cloudcult.com. And to all of our viewers and listeners, we send you peace, love, and light.